For those of you not on the East Coast, good morning. For those that are, good afternoon, and welcome to the NRC webinar, Recognize Return on Investment Through Managed Services. If at any point during this broadcast you have questions, please utilize the chat feature via Start Meeting. In addition, we'll pause a couple different times during this presentation to allow for questions. We'll also have a question and answer session at the conclusion of this webinar. Next slide, please. Our agenda for today's webinar is as follows. We're going to go through introductions of the NRC folks on the webinar and the different practice areas. You're going to hear about New Resources Consulting and the different functions and capabilities of those practice areas most relevant to managed services. We're going to talk through the known technology challenges via support, the overarching managed services process, and then we're going to talk through the benefits of managed services and a case study specific to one of our clients, Wake Forest Baptist Health. And as mentioned previously, we'll end with a question and answer session. So I'll go ahead and start it out, and then I'll turn it over to Candace and Julie. But my name is Brian Morrison, and I'm head of the Oracle Solutions Group practice for NRC. Candace?
Thanks, Brian. And I am Candace Carden. I'm the National Director of Business Development.
And I am Julie Zarowski. I am the Vice President, and I oversee all of our managed services teams.
Excellent. Thank you, Candace and Julie. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about New Resources Consulting as a whole. We have over 200 plus experienced consultants. We're involved in over 50 active clients nationwide. The average year's experience of our consultants are 15 years and counting. We have been in business for over 20 years as a consulting firm. And we are an Oracle Platinum partner. In addition, we've had 8 consecutive years as best places to work. And you're not seeing it on this slide, but we recently just accumulated and are now a certified cloud excellence implementer. And now I'm going to turn it over to Candace Carden to talk about some of the known challenges from a technology support perspective. Candace?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. So we have several challenges when we're trying to support our ERP systems or any of our main technology and IT systems. And one of the things we found is that over 29% of the average workday is spent reacting to and responding to unplanned emergencies. And of those, over 50% of those tasks are due to operational issues, outages, performance tuning, or troubleshooting. And then from there, we know that even once we've identified the problem, it takes another 5 times longer just to resolve it. Which leads us to our next slide. And managed services as a way to bridge that gap and help with some of that day-to-day operational support. So what is managed services? Managed services is fully outsourcing your IT department or the support of a system, but it's also so much more than that. It's a comprehensive strategic approach to basically maintain and support your system in the most cost-effective and time management perspective way. And that can be everything from, again, full outsourced support 24/7, 365, but it can also be a blend of that from on-site and remote support, overall security and enhancements, project initiatives, vendor management, and then also part of that can also be project and change management, which is a very, very important part of your IT and your IT support model. And next slide. So why managed services, and what are some of the options of managed services beyond that full outsourced managed services? One of the things that to consider is a kind of what we call bridging the gap. You're looking at implementing a new system. That can be anything from Oracle Cloud to any other type of SaaS or software system. We can come in and help with the day-to-day support of your existing system, whether that's PeopleSoft or Oracle eBusiness, so that your internal team can focus on their new roles and responsibilities and learning the new system. And that leads right into upgrades as well. Your internal team is focused on upgrading, learning the new enhancements and the new way the system will work. Our team can do that day-to-day support so that they can focus in those areas. Or you've just upgraded your system or implemented a new technology, roles have changed, the system has changed, and your support needs have changed. So our team can come in and help from both an end-user support perspective, but also support your internal team with best practices on the new system. Another example is just day-to-day operational. That list of enhancements and project initiatives grows every day. The user community is consistently and constantly always looking for added features and benefits. That list continues to grow because the internal team is swamped with trying to do day-to-day support and keep up with that list. The NRC team can come in and be a true extension of your team and help make sure we can help from both supporting the system so that you can focus on those initiatives internally, but we can also help focus on those initiatives and enhancements to really whittle that list down and increase your overall customer satisfaction. And lastly, we have some customers, and it's very common, your internal team is very, very lean. You don't have the resources to cover the amount of workload that you have, right? The motto in IT for the last several years now has been do more with less. So that NRC team can truly be a seamless extension of your team to help cover the ebb and flow of business, both from a project demand and initiative perspective, but also just covering for, PTO or people being out of the office or high peak times of volume. Some clients are more cyclical than others as far as the needs and demands on the system, such as open enrollment. So those are some high-level examples of different ways to consider managed services beyond that full outsourced ability. Any questions there? So moving on, some of the advantages to the managed services model, the key one being managed services allows your team to really focus on managing the business and the business objectives and not the technology. We help to reduce the overall operating costs by increasing your operational efficiencies. A good example of that is we're able to balance the different areas. So you may have some functional needs, some technical needs, some security needs, some enhancement needs. We can balance that over multiple resources and really help to, get those particular areas addressed sooner and more efficiently, but also reduce the overall cost because you're not bringing in a contractor and having ramp-up time. Some of the other things to look at is when we increase and improve the customer service levels for your application users because their initiatives are getting responded to sooner, and they're also getting quicker response and turnaround times because your internal team is freed up from that day-to-day support and being overwhelmed. But more than anything, the goal of managed services is to provide confidence that your system is fully and continuously supported and that the NRC team is a true extension seamlessly to your internal team. And next slide. So I had mentioned a little bit earlier some of the different types of managed services options. High level at NRC, some of the ways that we can support our clients is, again, full managed outsourced services where we're doing a full staff, 24/7, 365. We can do that either just during business hours as well, but we're fully supporting and taking on all responsibility of the system. Another option is what I would call staff augmentation support. That's where you're looking for just 1 to 2 team members to help supplement your internal team. And that's a balance of needs across multiple resources. So a good example there is you may be a PeopleSoft financials customer, and you have internal resources to support that, but you really could use just one more person, maybe a quarter of a person that knows GL, and a half a person that could do administration, and another quarter of developer. What managed services allows you to do is get one FTE that can cover all those areas. In a typical scenario, your quarter FTE roles would never get filled, and your internal resource would just have to do that extra work, and the same thing for your administration side. Or you might hire an administrator, but they're not fully utilized, which isn't the most cost-effective option. Another option that we have is the annual incremental support. That's where you have a bucket of hours that you can be used across all functional, technical, and support areas, and it's a set amount each week or each month that you're able to pull from. So similar to Staff Aug, except that it's a set number of hours, and that way it helps you to contractually know that I'm going to spend X amount of dollars and X amount of hours on support each year, which really helps some departments with understanding their support budget and makes that very helpful for them. Another option we have is emergent support. It's basically an insurance policy. We may or may not need it, but we really need something because our staff is very lean as a fallback, so that if someone does end up getting hurt or being out on extended leave, or we get an unexpected acquisition and we have this work, you can call us up, we know your system, and we're able to fill that slot for you temporarily while you're getting through whatever that activity is. And then lastly, we have on-demand support, and that's a great example for us being able to help during an upgrade. We come in for a few months and we take over the support or help your team after a go live with testing and training, different examples of that. Any questions on some of those areas or the different ways that we can offer support? Excellent. Next slide. So I'm going to turn it over from here to Julie, who's going to talk to you a little bit more about the actual service, the managed services process, and how we go about providing this support.
All right. Good morning. Good afternoon again, everybody. So as we stated when we did introductions, I manage the teams that do the day in and day out support across our variety of customers. We do Oracle Cloud support. We do PeopleSoft support. We're breaking into the Epic support. So we support a variety of different applications. And as we work with a multitude of our customers, we're even looking at taking on additional types of managed services. So while we're talking here about some of the Oracle type support that we do offer this service across multiple applications. To do that, to make sure that we are constantly providing the same level of service to all of our customers, I do have a standard process that I use with all of our customers. There is some flexibility in this depending on the size of support that you need. Obviously, if we're just doing support just for a short amount of time, if that's an upgrade, I will work with each customer to tailor the support process to make sure that it works for you, but I still make sure that we hit some of the key steps in here. We do have a ticketing system called Manage, similar to a ServiceNow, which is a larger commercial system, but we use a system called Manage. We ask that all of our requests come in there because then I'm able to see the requests not only for one customer, but across all the customers and make sure that I'm balancing that work correctly. I do try, before I continue down the process here, I do try with most of our customers, depending on what service or model that you need support from. So if you're in the finance module, I try to make sure that I assign one, if not two resources to make sure that you're constantly having that same contact. However, just like we fill in for organizations when they have, extended maternity leaves, extended FMLA leaves, some of my team members are out at the same time. So while I try to make sure you have a primary contact, I always have a secondary contact, and the customers will always have a service delivery manager that will help with that. Once the tickets come in, I do have a triage system. With each customer, we'll sit down and understand what your SLAs are, and those SLAs really depend on what type of service you've selected. So our customers that we do 24/7, 365 support for, they have a much larger rigor in their SLAs versus our customers that have contacted or contracted with us to do 1,000 hours of support over the year. But we sit down and we mutually agree on here's what the SLAs are going to look like, here's what's going to happen, and then we make sure that when the tickets come in that we are maintaining those SLAs and making sure that we're providing you the best service possible. I am a huge proponent of communication. I don't think that we can communicate enough. I think even as we do communicate, there's always challenges because communication, it's from the sender to the receiver, back to the sender to make sure that everything is understood. So while you've entered the request through the system, we've triaged that ticket based on our understanding and the information that you've provided. I do ask all of my team members then to reach out to the person that has submitted that ticket, first via a phone call, so we can validate the information. If we're not able to contact, we understand the reason you've asked us to do some of this work is because your teams are very busy, but we then do follow up with an email to make sure that we're on the right page and on the right path resolving your issue. We assess those tickets and then establish a resolution plan. Again, we reach back out to that end user or that person that has submitted the ticket to say we validated what we thought. We want to make sure that we're doing the right thing for your organization. And the more information we have sooner before we start doing the work on it, the better our results are at the end. As we complete the ticket, we go through an initial test and validation by our team to make sure everything is working appropriately. We then partner with the end user. That may be the person that has submitted the ticket. That may be a business end user if we're talking about a report that needed to be generated from the finance module, or a report that needed to be generated for a third-party vendor that we needed to make changes to. So that testing and validation, again, there's always that communication. Lastly, we work with the customer teams to make sure that they've accepted the change, and then we close the ticket. As I've stated before, communication is my biggest thing, so it's that constant communication loop there to make sure that we are doing the right thing. Communication does break down sometimes, but we will always step back and make sure that we've gotten the ticket completed appropriately for the customer. Again, depending on the size and the commitment for the managed services, we do meet with the customers. Some customers we only meet bi-weekly, so every other week. Some customers we meet with weekly. Some of our larger customers, we actually meet with them 2 to 3 times a week because of the volume of tickets that are coming in. And lastly, my largest customers, we have a daily scrum to make sure that we're working on the right tickets at the right time for them. Once we get all the tickets coming in, we have that cadence established when we're going to meet. We work jointly with the customers to understand their priorities. We provide what it will take from a technical side, whether that's an analyst or a developer or a sysadmin, but we always need to understand what is that business priority. I have team members on our team that have worked with PeopleSoft for over 20 years, so they do have a good knowledge not only of the technical side, but they understand what the business needs from the system. But it is important to understand what each of our individual customers' business needs are. We don't want to make an assumption that we understand. We're in the middle with many of our customers that we support the HR side for. It is open enrollment time. Some of our customers do October open enrollments, some do November open enrollments, but we know that that is a priority for the majority of the customers right now. And while that is high, as we get tickets in, we don't want to make the assumption all the time that everything with open enrollment is going to supersede anything else that came in. So we constantly have that communication. For the majority of our customers, we do more of the break fix or the day-to-day work. We do some project work, and we account that in our contracts, and we have to do that. That said, we understand that there are team members in the organization that are doing project work. And I also want to keep that communication open because we don't want to fix something from a break fix and that we overwrite something that's happening in the project world or vice versa. So again, both that prioritization, understanding what the true needs are, making sure we're meeting with the client on a regular basis to understand that, and then also understanding what else they have going on in the organization. Any questions so far on what I've covered? This is an example of the service level agreements. Again, this is just a starting point. Every single customer that we support has a little bit different service level, and again, it's both on what is the breadth that we're going to be servicing your organization and what is the depth. High level, though, again, a severity one means that a system is down. We need to get involved immediately to help you get that system back up. I will say with our service level agreements, I have a response time and a resolution plan time. So when we get a severity in, whether it's 1 through 4, we have a set time on when we know that we'll respond to you. I will tell you, while I have different response times for level 2, 3, and 4, the majority, I'll say 95% of our response times for any of those severities are generally within that hour to say, we received your ticket, we're trying to understand what's going on with your ticket. The reason I use resolution plan and not just resolution is because depending on what that issue is and who else we may need to engage to resolve that issue, we always don't have full control to be able to do it on our own. So if we are just doing a staff aug for you, we may need to engage with other team members on the Oracle Cloud team, on the PeopleSoft team, or on our Epic team. But if it's a system network issue, we may have to reach out further into your IT area. But we will make sure that we say we understand the issue based on our current understanding. Here's our next steps with resolution. Does everybody agree to this? Do we need to have a response call put in place where we get on a call every 2 hours to make sure we're checking in? Or because this is a lower severity, we can do an email once a day to complete those pieces there. Any questions on the SLAs? Some of our, this is a sampling of our managed services clients. We cross multiple industries, so we are in healthcare, manufacturing, staffing, financial, and the newest one that I'm just finishing the contract for, and we're going to go down and start doing some staff aug of one single resource across multiple facets, so a little system administration, development, and analysts. Our newest one is advanced disposal, so we're just starting to get into that process with them. The other customers we have been supporting for a fair amount of time. The Manpower and Wake Forest are our largest contingents, and I'll talk a little bit more about Wake Forest. That truly is more the full, totally outsourced managed services. But the First Citizens, A.O. Smith, and some of our other customers really fall into either that emergent. A.O. Smith they were on PeopleSoft forever. They have moved over to SAP, and they have 3 modules that are still sitting on PeopleSoft that their team has moved on to support SAP. We support those modules for A.O. Smith for them. They don't need a lot of care and tendering, but they do need somebody there when something occurs with it because they are important modules to them. First Citizens is a customer where they just are new to the PeopleSoft world, and we augment their team across system analyst, developer, functional analyst, and security for them. So again, we can put the picture together, what's going to work best for your organization. For Wake Forest, they had a very challenging PeopleSoft environment. On the HCM side, when we came on board, they had approximately more than 2,000 customizations just in the HR system, not including any of the other systems that they had. So they were really struggling to try to maintain all of those customizations and streamline their support. So as we came in, we did take over all of their PeopleSoft support, which included their HCM, their finance and supply chain, as well as campus solutions. So we do support this customer 24/7, 365. We are on call for them on a regular basis, and we were able to take about 1,900 tickets that they had in their backlog, and we have whittled that down now to a rolling 100 tickets across all of the modules that we support. Not individually, 100 for each one, but 100 over all the modules. We constantly have approximately that number in our queue, so we are getting tickets in, but we don't have that backlog that they originally had. This is a little bit more on the Wake Forest Baptist Medical. So again, across HCM, financial, supply chain, campus solutions, they are very heavy and very deep into PeopleSoft. So we do have a team that supports all of those modules there, and we are able to successfully make sure that that system is constantly moving for them, and it is a very critical system for the organization. With that, I will turn it back to Candace.
Thank you very much. So to wrap up, I want to talk a little bit about some of the statistics that we've gathered after supporting some of our clients and some of the proven managed services results. We've seen an overall 33% decrease in operating costs through improved quality and efficiency. We've seen an overall 55% increase in overall productivity, basically by eliminating duplication in efforts and improving processes and efficiencies within the organization. We have decreased issue backlog by 95%, as Julie mentioned, specifically at Wake Forest, reducing the number of service tickets from 1,800 to 100 in just a 9-month period. Optimizing resources, over 100% increase in the scalability of resources, and basically doing that by optimizing the staff and focusing on business objectives and responsibilities and being able to balance those resources across multiple skill sets. But most importantly, an overall increase of over 60% in customer service satisfaction. The increase in response rate and enhanced availability of the team and resolution increase has improved customer satisfaction by 62%. And from there, are there any particular questions that anyone has about any of the information that we've gone over, or some of the different options that NRC has from a managed services perspective and how we can support you or specific technologies? Okay. I don't think, Brian, you're not getting any questions on your end?
There are no questions in the chat window.
Okay. So one of the things I'll do then is ask you, Julie, I know one of the questions we get sometimes is, how does the support work from a resource perspective? Am I going to get a dedicated resource, or I'm going to get it put into a call bank and always talk to someone different? How does that work?
So great question, Candace. So a couple items that I forgot to mention. So number one, we have 2 service centers. One's located in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. The other service center is located at our corporate office, which is in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The majority of my managed services resources work between one of those 2 locations. I do have some resources that are remote, especially we're starting to support some customers on the West Coast. So we do have a variety of onshore within the United States resources. As far as what happens for the customer's individual support, again, I'll look at what modules you need us to support, what resources I have available. Generally, as you submit the ticket into Manage, I do have an assigned resource, a primary resource, that will be working with each client, and that primary resource is the first person that will receive that ticket. Generally, they are able to resolve the majority of their tickets, but the one advantage to managed services is that resource has the entire team at their disposal to be able to make sure that we're able to quickly and efficiently resolve those issues. So if there's something that my one finance person does not know, my other 6 finance people will be able to answer those questions in that instance. And again, it depends on which module, but we always have a backfill. And one of the items, one of our customers that was looking for some development resources, you know, we put one of our team members out there, and he was a little concerned because he thought that, well, I only have one resource. And again, the communication I went back to them is, yes, this person is your primary contact, But if they get stuck, they have 7 other people behind them to be able to help them with that issue that's out there.
Perfect. Thanks, Julie. One of the other questions I get sometimes is, how will you get access to our systems, and how do we maintain our security? So can you address some of the ways we go about that?
So we abide by and we follow all IT security protocol from the client. So the majority of our clients, we are VPNing into their organization, and it's through a secured protocol. We have some that use the token method. We have some that just use straight VPN with a username and password. But we follow all protocols of that customer's the customer's IT perspective. In addition, we maintain our own IT protocols here, and we provide those to any client that would like to see what we do from the security side from our perspective.
Perfect. Excellent. And one of the questions I get sometimes is, what are the contract options? What is the minimum number of hours or the minimum duration that we do from a contract perspective? So to go over that, we typically shoot from an annual support contract. We typically start with a minimum of 10 hours a week, which would be 40 hours a month or 520 hours for the year, and that's a 12-month annual contract. There is some flexibility with that based on the client need and demand and the types of support we're doing. From an on-demand perspective, that can be a short period of time, and that's a lot more flexible. It just really depends on the client needs. And I think outside of being a true partner and an extension of your team, that's the other area that we really focus on, is being flexible and being able to model our service based on the needs of your organization.
And I think one thing I'd like to add, Candace, is the goal. My goal for any team that we support, one, is that your team feels as though our resources that are supporting you become part of their team, and we build that trust and we build that confidence in there. The other piece is, well, we want to support all of our managed services clients. Our most important goal is to make sure that your systems are running efficiently, so that you don't have the need to constantly call us for support, that you know that you have a trusted partner and they have made those systems work efficiently for you. So that is the second goal that I have.
Excellent. Thank you. I think the last question that I get very, very often that you might be able to address, Julie, and then we can wrap things up, is, how do I keep track of the number of hours that are being spent or know what my hours are being used for? And I think you touched on it a little bit earlier, but it might be good to kind of high level talk about that.
So depending on the size and complexity of the contract will depend on what we do from an hour reporting perspective. At a bare minimum, every client is provided a weekly list of, here's what was in our queue, here's what has been completed, and here's what we are working on next. For my clients that are using the smaller numbers, let's say the 1,000 hours per year, in addition to those reports, we also put the hours on. This is how many hours we spent. These are the resources that charge to your account. So again, those are for my smaller clients. For my fully outsourced clients, because some of those we are up to 2,000 to 3,000 hours per month, it'd be very hard for me to generate those reports from that number of FTEs every month. So I do provide those a monthly look back report saying, here's what we had contracted, here's how many hours broken down per module that we have spent on your effort. And it's a good look, especially when there's multiple leaders, if we're doing a larger managed services, to see, well, why is the majority of our time being spent on HCM, but campus isn't getting as much attention as the HCM is? And then it provides some opportunity for those managers internally to have those conversations from our larger clients. For our smaller clients, getting to see what they're spending on a weekly basis, then they're able, if they do have a larger project that comes up and we have a bunch of tickets, then they're able to help prioritize a little bit better to say, well, I'm not going to have you spend 40 hours this week running tickets because we need a developer really to help us with this project, so I want to allocate that time to that project.
Thank you, Julie. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to be able to have us discuss there, some of the flexibility within that as well and how that works. I don't think we have any other questions. Brian, do we want to wrap things up?
Absolutely. So hopefully you got a lot out of this webinar. If you have any additional questions or would like to follow up with you, on the screen is our contact information at info@nrconsults.com, and that is also the main number for our office. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today. And again, please let us know if you have any questions or where we can further assist you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.